for everyone for taking the time to walk through. This is another look at the budget. What we'll start off doing is talking about where we're at now, where we're projected to end here at the end of this month. As always, there'll be some cleanups with some accounting through November, and then we'll walk through some budget slides you've seen in the past, and then we'll get to some data that's a little more granular. I'm open for questions throughout. This is, like I said, it's a work session, not really a report, so we'll just talk through as it goes. And then we'll get to some more granular data and then talk about some options for things that are coming up around the levy. There's a packet full of all that, and we'll get started.
Okay.
Great.
That's good.
So we're projecting to end this year with a negative fund balance. We talked about the last board meeting, and that is due to the outstanding accounts payable. And so those are all recognized. So you'll see a giant spike in expenses on the graph, and that's that orange line, and that is due to us. That's when we recognize all the outstanding expenses. So what that'll do is it'll push our fund balance down into a negative about 2.2 million, maybe negative 2 million. And so we'll start off this year a little bit better. We'll start off next year a little bit better than we started off this year. But because of the decisive and decisions that were made, difficult decisions that were made in the spring, the outlook for the end of next year is a lot more sunny in this path of a plan we've built to build back our fund balance to the proper amount. Any questions about the ending fund balance for the year that's just finishing? I know we talked a lot about it mostly every month, so it's fine if you don't, I guess.
So I guess my question then is, with we found more?
We didn't find more. It's just the liabilities are booked. Your accounts payable, your outstanding bills aren't booked as liabilities until the end of the year.
Okay.
And so that's when that accounting
So you're
happens.
just recognizing.
And so you're recognizing them in your books as an outstanding liability. And so that's what it spikes that up, which is what happened last time as well. There were a bunch of unknown ones that were discovered.
Yeah.
These are all known. We talked about this with ESD and NOSPAD the whole time. This fund balance projection graph that you're seeing has a lot of raw data behind it that the ESD has evaluated. It's been presented to OSPI, and that's what we worked through to get to this point.
And
this graph.
The reason for projection for the negative fund balance of 2.2 or around to 2 million is that, again, we close our books, we submit to the state by November 1st. So that's why we're still projected. We're closing up on our bills. We still have bills to go until the end of this month, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Payroll and accounts payable.
And we have done some things. You know, we sold that house on University for about $270,000. That'll help with some of those outstanding. That's accounted for here. There's some other things that aren't accounted for here that might still happen, but I'm too conservative to put them in there when they're not happening. Right? I don't have a guarantee for them. Great question. What other questions do you have?
How are we doing as far as our bills for community businesses?
Yeah, so I just talked to just Licky about this too, and Mark Sigler about this. We are prioritizing the local vendors and the universities for Running Start. Those are the largest outstanding invoices that we have, the ESD and the universities. And so we are in constant contact with them. I've talked to most of them. Either me or my staff talked to every single vendor. We have about 330-ish. So we've been in contact with all of them. Some of them will take a little longer to get. Other ones that were small, we're old. I mean, some folks had complained about this bill was from 2023, and so we just try to get those short up quickly. And so we're trying to work from the oldest forward and get those caught up. Because also in their system, they recognize it as a real still dated invoice, right? And so we're trying to help them with their books as well.
Yeah.
But it's a constant conversation. We're every day and every week we're talking to folks and making sure we're communicating what bills are being paid out. Some folks require, they don't require, but they asked for, could it be possible to get like a copy of the check before you send it? And so then we PDF it and send it to them so they can see it.
Okay.
Just trying to over-communicate to build more trust with everybody.
Yes, I appreciate that part, because that's the part I think that is really important, is rebuilding.
Those are the phone calls that are fun to get.
Right, and that's the good news, is like putting a stop to that long historic practice of not paying through and having bills continue to add up year in, year out, where vendors aren't getting paid.
The good news is that, I mean, like Carrie is asking the question, I'm asking the question, in so much that I'm not getting those phone calls on Saturday afternoons anymore. So
Yeah, I would hope not. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
you know, we're obviously doing better than we were, or at least we're communicating this to.
Yeah, I mean, it's hundreds of phone calls, and it is, I will also, to their credit, once I explain the situation that we're in, what we're doing, how we value them, and this is, because most of the vendors have a long-standing history of supplying Shelton with supplies or services, and we want to honor that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And they've all been very empathetic and understanding and willing to work with us on all of it. So it's been really a relief to me as I'm having hundreds of the same conversation over and over again.
How many years out before we have none of those?
So this next year will be a huge chunk off of them, even with the positive fund balance that you'll see at the end. Some of them are quite large, so it'll take another year after that.
Okay,
for sure.
Would we say within 2 years we should?
Yeah, I concern. Yeah, two or 3 years. Some of them are pretty big.
Yeah.
If you're asking for all of them, then yeah, I would say I would feel more comfortable saying 3 years, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So, and all that shifts too, you know, as we build more programs and enrollment grows, that drives more revenue, which we'll talk about in a second, and that also frees us up to do more, right?
Back to ESD and OSBI.
Yeah.
They reviewed these numbers, is that
Yeah.
what you said? Okay,
Mhm.
I'm just thinking if somebody says, hey,
Yeah, I mean,
who's overseeing?
I think we talked about this before. I'm not a magician. I'm not a wit. Like, I don't like to work in a silo, especially with problems this big. I think the more eyes and more brains on it, the better. And I don't have any ego around it. Like, if someone catches something that I missed, great. Like, we're in this together. And so, yes, we've been partnering with the ESD. And then those numbers get reviewed by the ESD, and then we present them to the OSPI. And then they have conversations by themselves without us.
Okay.
And then we circle back.
Love that.
Yep.
But in talking about the ESD, because we have a large bill with the ESD, I made that email where I was
Yeah.
acknowledging that somebody from the board was acknowledging that. Are we continuing with those services that cause this bill to be the size that
Some of
it
them
is
we
like
have
that?
to, and others we don't. And so there are some strategic abandonment, I think is a good way to say it, that we're not going to do. But a lot of the services through the ESD are special education, and they are the kind of the only way and the best value to serve some of those
So you
students.
you
But
have to.
I think it's called
continue
Olympic Academy. That's a very expensive service through the ESD. We have True North that provides mental health services that are fantastic. And these are really making an impact with students' lives. And so we are keeping a lot, I would say we're keeping a lot of them. We are trying to move away in areas that make sense for us to move away. I don't know if I add anything to
Nope.
that. Okay.
Great question, yeah.
Great question. Yeah, I mean, that's the trick too, right? If you stop using your credit, if you pay your credit card off, you also stop using it. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so in
Yes.
layman terms, right?
Well,
Like, so-
and because that's one where we have to look at what it is that we're doing versus, say, the community colleges. Because if you have kids doing Running Start, that's
Right.
something you just have to pay.
Yeah.
But with the ESD, those are services, some of which possibly, I mean, obviously, special education, some of those True North,
That's
some
the
of the
majority.
recovery credit things, those are things that we want to.
Yeah, and we've negotiated different contracts and kind of moved forward to make this a little more affordable for us and also create better outcomes for kids and some of those changes. And Chelsea Bray's worked really hard on a lot of that.
Yeah.
Great. So as we talked about before, enrollment drives all of our revenue. Every student's a basic ed student. Some students do qualify for additional revenue streams if they're special ed students or Title I or identified as ELL or LAP. And so what we're projecting for next year is actually a reduction from what we budgeted. In previous years that were ending was budgeted at 4341. We did not hit that number, which was the previous year's ending, I think. And so we're budgeting for 4375, which is a small uptick, but we also know that we've been making phone calls and bringing kids back in pretty aggressively. And so that feels like a conservative estimate for our enrollment. We're not fully rebounding from COVID. A lot of districts haven't.
Almost all districts.
Yeah, I mean, it's really rare to see a district that would have. But overall, the trend is we are trying to recapture those students for sure.
And most of those are, again, high school students.
Yeah.
We're right here at Choice. And so that going out and getting almost like a 50 additional kids that were not currently enrolled in high school, one way or another. There's a story behind each of those 50 kids, right? It's not just just making sure anybody listening and for the board to know, it's not just like hey, they disenrolled from the Shelton School District. That's actually not always the case. They're just kids that have been hanging out there in the area. They're just not enrolled in high school.
Right.
So we went out and got them. And so I think that's, as Clinton's mentioned, that's majority of why we have an uptick is because or going out and getting enrollment more at the high school level. It's not really happening so much. And we have different fluctuations. As you know, we've talked about different cohorts come through and things move through the different schools. So if somebody was also listening in on this conversation, they would go, oh, wait, there's less kids at my kid's school. I hear the teacher. I'm like, yeah, well, that rolls through naturally too around enrollment. But enrollment is so critical because that is directly tied to our funding. And so making sure that we have our enrollment correct helps our budgeting, and as well as, again, back to revenue tied to it. To get an uptick is kind of nice, and despite, again, rumors that have gone on since I've been here around, we've dropped enrollment. That is actually not true. It's been flat since COVID, and again, it was a reset for every district during COVID.
So as the students drive those revenues, the breakdown, which is the next slide with the big boxes, there's a couple things that I wanted to point out with this slide. One is that when those students are driving revenue, most of our revenue comes from the state, but a large 22% of that is also restricted dollars from the state. Those are LAP dollars, or ELL dollars, or some sort of special education, some sort of program that are earmarked for specific functions. So it is considered, it's part of the apportionment that comes in, but it's not the regular basic education allocation we talk about a lot, or BEA dollars. That's only 57% of our budget, which is, if you think about, they're expecting us to operate with the revenue that's only 50% of what we get. And it's still short, even with the others. So I think that's really important. That's a different breakdown. $19 million of our state money is restricted in some way. And then 9% of our money comes from our levy. It's about $8 million. And when we pass the levy, we talk about this a lot too, but when we pass the levy, the state is then obligated to give us additional dollars because it's levy equalization dollars, because the assessed valuation is so drastically different across the state that they try to give these additional dollars to equalize those differences. And so for every dollar that the community member gives us, we get another quarter from the state, and they're required to do it. What's interesting is that if you don't pass the levy and you would need those dollars, they don't give them to you, right? So I just think it's important to understand that difference. And those LEA dollars are included in the 57%. So one passes. So
Is 22% what most districts are working on?
yeah, it's roughly around that. It just depends on the populations, right? So if districts have a higher ELL population or LAT population, those dollars can be plus or minus.
Yeah, it does vary. I mean, it varies. I mean, it's not the higher needs districts, so like,
Yeah.
but yeah, it can vary pretty significantly. But like he said, like those districts who don't have as much federal programs, those restricted dollars, those are the ones that can generate a lot more money off of their levy. So it's like this thing, and they're not restricted, which is back to like districts like Shelton can be highly penalized when you don't pass a levy, because we do need those levy equalization dollars, leaving $2 to $3 million on the table. That's going to go to another district if you don't pass your levy. Mm-hmm. And then those restricted dollars are just even more of a handcuff, because we have to go to more, they are going for support services, as whereas Clinton was mentioning the basic ed, you're like only 57% of the 84, $85 million is what they think that we can fund this district off of $48 million for basic ed. And so it's just a have and the have-nots. McCleary didn't solve the problem. Yeah. And for us, in our particular situation, as I've said since I got here, being this reliant on restricted dollars has caused a problem, because those are the dollars that you are stuck having to utilize as where we get care over, because the 48 isn't enough to cover our operating expenses.
And then it can look like, hey, you got all this money coming in,
right?
You're like, I can't take that money from restricted dollars and move it over here where it's needed.
Right, and so all those districts, Olympia is one of my getting examples, they not only have a EP&O, but they have a capital levy. That capital levy is able to cover all sorts of other operational related expenses, and so that is monies that we don't even have, that's not even a conversation here. So that's why, again, it's the have and have-nots shown, and that's why a levy's so critical, is because we want those state to give us our portion of those monies. We do need that additional money, and to give the money to another district is I don't know, highly criminal in my opinion.
Yeah, and what a levy also allows is a little bit more local control, because you get to decide what your value in your community when you pass a levy.
Yeah.
So,
It's less restricted, yeah.
because it's not restricted. The state can't dictate to you where it's all trying to go. So, any other questions about revenue? Great conversation. We're gonna again break down the expenditures a couple different ways, and then we'll get into some detail about them. We are a people-oriented business, so a large percentage of our expenditures go to people. And so I have a breakdown here of certificated salaries. Benefits are expensive and always on the rise. Those are never getting cheaper. Classified salaries, and then MSOCs are materials, supplies, and operating costs. That's all this stuff. And that $12 million is an uptick from the $10 million we're spending this year. But it's on purpose, because we have all those outstanding accounts payable bills to pay. And so some of those savings that we had to make are going to pay for those supplies, materials, and operating costs, right?
So those aren't just materials, supplies, operating costs now, they are also the ones
That we're having to catch up
pay
on.
for
That's
the
exactly
tax.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. Like we should probably be a $10 million MSOC district, but we're having to get caught up from years past, and so that's what this is doing.
Okay.
So it looks a little different from previous years.
So Clinton, would that be true though, like knowing that the state has underfunded us in MSOC dollars, 4 million over the last 3 years?
And interest, like, you know.
I like how you're thinking.
Yeah.
Yes, we can't charge that, but yes,
Yeah.
I would like,
Everything is increasing costs.
Lauren, I love your advocacy for public education, because it's good, right? You're like, it was,
I'm saying plus the increase to everything.
Yeah, so
Is
this-
that-
oh, inflation, yeah, inflation, yeah.
Inflation, I just.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to adjust, and some utilities are going up 14% in Shelton area, and that's 14% every year they're going up. And so we are accounting, as we are made aware of those and we seek out that data, that is adjusted in the budgets. Great question.
Yeah, Lauren, that's right. The inflation is significant and that's what has contributed to part of our problem.
Yeah.
That is part of the story.
And I think what's important is this spending level of $81 million is similar to what we've spent in the past, even though the revenue, if I go back real quick, the revenue is almost 85 million, but our expenses are only 81 million. But when we're starting the year with a negative $2 million, we are holding back some of the basic ed and levy dollars as much as we can and still operate to build back into a positive fund balance.
Right.
And so we'll do that for this year, and we'll do it into next year. And so that difference of $4 million will go into fund balance. So instead of in 1.6, we might have 5.6 at the end of the year after, right? And that's part of the plan that we've laid out to rebuild our fund balance.
So, not to change the subject, but as far as like the state auditor goes, I know they're freaking out now about us, but how long before they start really freaking out? Or if we have a plan to get into the positive?
Yeah, so you're talking specifically on the Shelton is a fund balance policy. And so that is because we're not meeting that and we're in binding conditions, that is an alert, and they are looking at that. The plan that we have and showing them the same data is the same way out. It's the same way out. It's having the plan, taking the decisive action that everyone at the table has taken. That solution is the same solution for the auditors as it is for OSPI to get our fund balance built.
Okay.
They want to know about this meeting, for example. So like,
Yeah.
when are you meeting with your board? What are you covering? We give them the materials. They have access, obviously, to all of our budget documents. I mean, there is full disclosure. There's nothing to hide. It's really, we're back to building the general fund balance. A lot of the same actions, though, just for clarity purposes, and I think people listening in, and again, these are the conversations we have, is whether you're on 2 million on one side or 1 million on each side of the ledger, positive or negative, you're taking a lot of the same steps.
Sure.
For us, we've taken even more quickly took the steps. The steps that by taking actions mid-year last year right away was really extremely helpful, to the part where you don't want to keep carrying your debt because it just keeps building up. That is what's part of the other part of this story, is having that, and then you need to get on the other side with your plan so that we can end in the positive ultimately this next year. But it's the part that I think people listening also might not understand is, well, if you got $1.5 million in savings, how come you can't just pay all of your bills. Well, there's a thing, just really simply cash on hand.
Right.
The 1.5 million has two sides to it. Back to the restricted, so some of those carry forward dollars, that 1.5 will be restricted dollars.
Sure, yeah.
So that means that's really not part of your ultimately
So it's there, but it's not liquid, so.
correct.
Yeah.
It's like, it's locked down on for the support activities that we definitely need. And hopefully the federal government doesn't cut further.
Right.
And then for us, so that means that it's not really all, $1.6 million on hand. And then proportionally, again, I know I'm a broken record, just like to keep saying things so people understand what we're doing. We do not get all the money. The 85 million is not all provided to us up front. And as we get reimbursement for the restricted dollars. That's not, most of that is just stuff that we have to get reimbursed on. So we need that cash on hand to even get those dollars, on top of the fact that 23 to 25% of your money's come the last 2 months. So that means in July and August.
Which is why you want the cash on hand.
It's just super hard. It's akin to living in a very fixed income household.
Yeah.
When the roof goes, it costs $1 million.
And you gotta go back to those budget dollars all the way back in the past. And do you have anything you want to add to
I think
that?
that's great.
I'm just trying to, I know, I end up getting, I get this simple part of the explanation, but I'm just a layman's, I just want to make sure
Perfect.
people, I just keep the broken record so that anybody, again, paying attention can understand it the best they can. We want to empower the community to understand how public school districts are financed.
So the next slide is the same dollar amount broken up in different, what they're called activity groups. And so teaching activity is all the teaching, extracurricular, teaching support is just that. But it includes all the object codes, like the principal's office, the copiers are coded to the principal's office. So it's not just this is all principal money, right? It's papers put there from the buildings. There's a lot of other stuff that's included in these. So the secretaries, the principals as well, but it's not just principals as people. And that's true for central admin as well. Other things like we pay for central admin, there is insurance is $1.3 million. That's coded to central admin, right? It's not coded to teaching activity because it's not that. So, but it's just a different look at the same dollar amount. I just think it's important to understand that that's all these different activities exist. And the reason we're doing that is two reasons. Like these are all dictated by the accounting manual, but if I gave you that, it's really hard and boring to look at. And so this is a different way to look at it.
Who puts out the accounting manual?
OSPI. Yeah.
When you look at this compared to other districts, or somewhere say, hey, comparables, where do we land?
With this one,
Are we heavy any place? Are we just out of
we
curiosity?
were heavy in salaries, but most years are heavy in salaries, and so we've made those adjustments that we've made. In trying to analyze all of our bills and see where we can make reductions, we have identified that our utilities overall are more expensive in our area than in other areas for districts our size. We looked at districts, I think maybe 9 districts our size, plus or minus, in our area and on the other side of the state, which is a little tricky. Like Grant County has the cheapest power and water in the state, so wasn't really a fair comparison. I had to throw that one right out. But we do pay a bit more for some utilities that we're looking at, strategic abandonment on some things to cut that cost down.
But
The
look
water's
at,
very expensive, and I think everyone knows. The sewer's very expensive,
Yeah.
the water's very expensive, yeah, so.
but looking at the things like teacher support or other support or teaching activities.
No, this is pretty much this is pretty normal.
Yeah.
I mean, it may shade 3% one way or another, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is like to a way bigger theme, like, how do I trust the Shelton School District, and are we off in our proportions, right? Like to your question.
Yeah, because that's one of those questions.
You know what I like to say now? I said, well, for the top performing school district in the entire state for early literacy, you must be doing something right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because I don't shy away from the fact that we do business different here. I know we have like restrictions. We're trying to generate savings to our general fund balance, but there's a reason why in our strategic plan we have 4 priorities. One is about effective educators and leaders. We are not getting away from professional development if we can help it. Why? Because if we give that up, then we've just given up the ability to improve.
Yeah.
Our teachers and our leaders are in contact with our students every single day. We have to get better in our position. And so we have dedicated to that, we've kept that, we've prioritized that into the budget. You know, it's like back to your question, like that's real time, right? Like that's why our teaching and support budget, I wish it was more. We don't even have enough. I would like to start a slow walk over the next 2 years for doing a math adoption. We can't afford it. And that's sad to me. That you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that can't even be reflected in a budget.
Yeah, I appreciate that though, because that's one of those questions you're asked. It's like, hey, why here? How will
Yeah, the balance and getting results, right? Like, because we could balance it out and make it look so pretty and everything like that, but you know, form and function are really important things to both understand on both sides.
Yeah, if we quit teaching kids, it gets really cheap.
Said better than I can. Yes, correct.
So like, unions look at our books and stuff, and they do those comparisons, they bring them to the table and say, hey, you're spending more in principal's office than the other district or whatever. And well, yeah, but I'm also charging printers there, because that's where it's housed and that's where the work comes from. So it just, you can kind of shift it plus or minus a little from different districts, but overall, it's pretty normal. I think the big difference is the laser focus on the strategic plan and the outcomes that we're seeing regardless. The last one, before we switch gears real quickly into a little bit more detail, is what all of this means. If we zoom out a little bit from the different revenue and buckets. And so there's a little table on the right. We'll start next year at a negative fund balance. We have 85 million coming in, 82 3/4 going out. So that ends in a positive fund balance of 1.6 million. One thing I will say is that this budget is built conservatively, and what's not included here is the reinstatement of some of those title dollars from the federal government that came in back late. They said, hey, we actually are going to give you those dollars. I haven't seen exactly what the allocations are for us, so I didn't add them because I don't know what that looks like. Some OSSI dollars came back. We saw those, but I didn't add them either. Just the timing of it didn't work for me to, because this is a giant, a 200-page document that I also have to send up to the state. And so it's too late to make those changes in the approval process of the document. And so OSSI dollars, even though we knew what they were, it was kind of too late to include them in our approval process. And the title dollars also aren't in here. So it could actually be a little bit more. We may spend a little more too as those dollars come in because we didn't account for them as expenditures. And so if those dollars come in at a substantial amount, we may come with a budget extension for a small amount because we'll need to spend some of those dollars, right? Because we are dedicated to outcomes.
What, with everything on the landscape,
Yeah.
I think it's very intelligent to be conservative because I'm not 100% certain that there's not more cuts to be made by people on high.
Sure.
Is there anything that you know about on the landscape? So
No, I mean the big uproar over the summer was the shuttering of the Department of Education and the title dollars going away, and you think of Title I, but there's other title programs within that, and so those dollars coming back will be helpful. Any dollar is helpful, so we'll take them all. But I have not heard of anything else coming through. The next legislative session, it's too early to really get into it, but there's a lot more advocacy around, we'll get to it in the details, but what they did in special education is really frustrating, and so there's more advocacy around those dollars coming, I think.
Okay.
So, great question. The next, sure, great. If you go to the next one, I highlighted a handful of programs. So now we looked at object codes, which are the columns actually. The salaries, the benefits are all those columns, and they're labeled 0, 1, 2, 3 because that's what the accounting manual labels them at. And then the definition, and then how much money is being spent in each object code under each program. So we're doing a little bit more detail, and I wanted to talk about a handful of them. That top one that's highlighted is basic education. And that's not that 48 million or 44 million, whatever it was now. Because basic education, 40 and a half, it's not, those BEA dollars come into program 01 and they come into program 97 and they come into they go into other programs that are considered basic education. And the revenues that are accounted for are also levy dollars, right? So they're also spread out through these. Okay, so I wanted to point out this basic education because it looks like it's really close to balancing, but it is not. And I just wanted to, and it's because there's a breakdown in other areas of those levy dollars. And that's all I really want to say about that. It is the biggest bucket of money that is tied to the apportionment schedule, whereas the grant claims that I was talking about, that we front funded and claim, if we spent, if the Title I grant came in at $500,000 and we spent all of it in September, we could claim it all in September. That's not what happens, but you could. I just wanted to talk about that structure looks different in basic education. The other one was programs 21 and 24 are our highest need population, and that now looks like, in the accounting of it, it now looks like it's fully funded by the state. But what they really did was they dictate that you cannot code it to the levy. And so now we're coding it to basic education instead of the levy. So it's being paid out of programs 21, 24. We'll end up cleaning it up, the differences of about 2 million, into basic ed. Because that makes it look like the state's fully funding special education when it's not.
Am I hearing that they just made it look, they just approved us to spend the money?
They dictated that you cannot code it to the levy, because the levy has its own code in the budget. We have to code it to 01 into basic ed. And so any overages now look like it's fully funded by the state. Oh, sorry. When in fact it's not. What that means though, is that, and I talked about this once before, every district in the state was coding their overages in special education to the levy. And then we could say, hey, this is exactly how much we're over. We need more funding in these areas. Because they've dictated that you can't code it there, every district has to code it to 01. We'll still track that. But now we have to spend our levy dollars somewhere else, which is fine because we have those overages all over. They're underfunding all over the place. What it seems to do, and the concern is it's lessened our ability to advocate for ourselves in a unified front. I just wanted to point that out as we get into session. I know it's very complicated.
This is gonna be a lawsuit.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's coming to be this one's gonna be a lawsuit. I don't know when, how long things take. This is a lawsuit.
It's moving deck chairs around to make them look good.
But
And it's frustrating because it's been underfunded forever. We've advocated it forever. And this little bit of changing what the cap looks like, that's not really solving the problem in special education. They're the highest need students.
Yeah.
They need more money.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. And I have some frustration on that. I wanted to share and provide some background for you on that, what it looks like as we move forward. The last one that I highlighted that I think is important is 97. That is district-wide support. That's where insurance, utilities, maintenance, grounds, all that stuff comes out of that. We have some big MSOCs coming out of there, and it's just a big program, and that's the other half of basic education, basically, if you look at it in account code language. And so that's $12 million. That's including, again, this is including all the staff for that, and it's including all the utilities, all other stuff. Those are some big highlights. The other one that we could talk about, I didn't highlight, is numbers 31 and 34 are CTE. And we have maximized those CTE dollars. We shifted into more allowable expenses this year than we have in the past. In previous years, at the end of the year, there'd be some sort of surplus, and then they do a bunch of journal entries at the end to clean it all up and balance it out. We're doing that ahead of time now, and so that allows the CTE program to fully plan out their full year and all their dollars that are remaining to them. And so some of the things that you're able to charge there are the utilities for those programs, some principals that are serving students, vice principals, counselors. So all those things are being charged directly to that program. It's allowable, and it just creates more predictability for the CTE programs and their staff and director.
proportionally.
Proportionally, yes, it's a proportional. I can't just code whatever I want. There's 25% of the students are in the CTE program, so 25% of it is coded. Yeah, and I think it's 26, and we even went under just to be safe.
But does that also help us with like state CTE dollars and stuff showing that we're spending all this on CTE, so we need more to do better or more?
Yeah, it does that. It allows us to tell a more accurate story of where our dollars are going. So yes. There's a bit more detail on this. It's about as low in detail as I wanted to go for this work session. If you had more questions, I was going to take them and then answer them at the next board meeting. What questions do you have about this document?
I don't know if this is necessarily, like, you were talking about maintenance, district-wide support.
Yeah.
When we have when, you know, we're in a negative balance, what are we doing as far as like our maintenance plan and then, because that, you know, trying to plan out where some things may need to have replacements or things like that, is that baked into this? Are we so thin that?
It's pretty thin, and the district has a long history of deferred maintenance, and so we have, Robert's put together, and he meets with Wythe every week, he'll meet with me every week starting as well, a plan to go through and what are the highest priority needs, because this $1.6 million fund balance is part of the plan, but if I have like 3 chillers fail across the district and I can't get an emergency grant from OSPI, like it just changes the outlook when an emergency occurs. And so we are trying to keep up on these big issues to make sure, and we have a handful of them across the district that they are built into the budget. The ones that we're trying to budget by priorities, right? So we have 50 priorities, we can't fund 50, we can really only fund 6. Great, let's do these 6 and know about it. And the next year, we'll get to the next section. And that's really the plan moving forward.
Yeah, so Robert does have that running plan.
We're all aware of what they are, yeah.
Yes.
They are, you know, I think if it's been a lean budget, and then in the past, we've long history here.
Yeah.
You know, before COVID, even somewhat during COVID, I just think some things, you know, like maintenance went on a pretty lean budget, and for us and for the facilities, we need a significant raise in monies to actually get like caught up. Like if you were to say like that running list, like if you can only capture really the top 10 or 15%, and time goes on and depreciation continues, it's that you're only getting more, you're pushing yourself into a corner of more emergency situations as opposed to any level of prevention, which Robert and the team there are great, but we are very limited right now in just what we can get done just around now, today's stuff that we need to fix, and we're not in the preventative stance that we would like to. We have some roofs that we need to replace. I feel like those are really urgent for us. We've done some work on some of the grounds, but then, you know, we're back to, we've got lighting issues, we've got security camera issues, we've got that are getting old, you know, and so those things happen for us. Some of our water things that, like, not all that water, that's the reason we're losing money on water, is that there's some replacement work that just has to get done, because we're leaking in places. And we know boilers, we have 2 boilers that could go anytime. So those are, you know, like, as soon as one of those happens, as he's using an example, and it's $100,000, that means 5 things just got kicked off the list.
Right, so like in this budget for the next year, we are essentially holding back $4 million of our revenue to get into a positive fund balance. And we'll do something similar the next year. And when we do that, that just creates additional cash flows to start addressing those problems. So we're really just trying to make it through to a point that we can then start fixing things and get back to normal. Because we're really not operating.
Yeah.
Normally a district has $85 million coming in, you spend $85 million. You balance your budget out, you've got your $6-7 million in fund balance, you just keep rolling. And that's not where we're at now. We are in a tougher time to build that back up to get there.
Yeah.
And so once we are, all those deferred maintenance things can then start getting addressed quickly.
And I know we're talking about maintenance. technology
Yeah.
makes me even more nervous. We're falling far behind. There's been a number of ransom attacks to districts here in Washington State. So it's not like this is somewhere else. And we need to get on these things. I mean, those are liabilities that we have afford us. It is expensive to run a school district. And again, the rich can do capital levies that help fund both of those items. And when we don't, they come from basic ed, which is even makes it harder, especially again, when you have a high needs population.
Yeah.
Yeah, capital levy would be really helpful. So the next two sheets are actually just a different breakdown. I thought the text would be larger, easier to read, but it ended up being the concise. And so the first one is just the salaries, what that cost, and we're not gonna go over that again. I just want you to have it, so you can see what the totals were. And the one after that is MSOCs, but it's the same exact data. I just cut the graphic, the table in half. The next thing that I think is important to talk about is introduce some levy options. No decision needs to be made tonight, but there are some options to walk through for what the next levy could look like when we draft the resolution in the fall and submit it to the county to get on the ballot. And so, this next thing, where's my map? Where's my cursor? Anybody? All right, cool. Oh, here we go, thanks. All right, I feel way better. I'm not delighted, that worked flawlessly before y'all got here. All right, so there's a handful of tables on this graph, on this sheet of paper, and all of them are different options. They are predicting, which is always a tricky thing, assessed valuation growth at 5%. Historically in Shelton and across the state, it's been way higher than the last couple of years, except for last year, it was a negative. We had negative growth in assessed valuation. But years before that was 12%, 10%, so 5 still feels conservative. And so what you're trying to do, I mean, crystal ball what that assessed valuation does, because it impacts what the rate ends up being. It does not impact the amount that goes out and is collected by the levy, but it impacts what the rate is. I think it's an important distinction. And so this first table scenario 4 is just keeping the current levy collection amount the same. And so in that middle box, if we go over the top, there's what year, the assessed valuation, the growth rate ends up being over there, and then the EP&O levy amount, and then the levy rate. And that's, the next column is where a capital projects levy would be. We don't collect one of those. And then a bond rate, and then what our total tax rate is. So there's a lot to look at there. I want to focus in on the EP&O, the one in the middle, the EP&O levy amount and the EP&O levy rate. And so you'll see in 2018, the Shelton community supported the school district at about $4.06. It's actually a little higher than that the year before, per thousand. That was the rate that was paid, actually paid, by the Shelton community to support the school district and collect $7.4 million. When you run down that list of dollar amounts, it becomes startling because we collected $7.4 million, and then the levy swap occurred, and we collected 2.9, which is a heavy drop. Every district across the state had a significant drop, just like Shelton did. And then we slowly rebuilt that over time. And so now we're at 8.2 million. And so if we went out for 8.2 million each year for 3 years, the tax rate is about 213, and then it just keeps going down to $1.93 because the tax valuation grows, and so your tax rate goes down. It's an inverse relationship, right? Now, if you go up for $8.2 million for the next 3 years, that does not, salaries still increase,
Inflation like Lauren said.
and then the cost of goods and services still increases. Inflation still occurs, right? So it's actually negatively impacts you because you're not covering what you were covering the year before with that $8.2 million because the cost of everything has gone up. The next scenario is if you keep the current tax rate the same at $2.20, and you'll see it goes up about $400,000 each time, roughly, a little bit more as it grows. So we would cut up 8.4, 8.8, and 9.3, and the tax rate remains at 220. But we're also crystal balling that assessed valuation. If it goes up higher than 5%, again, the tax rate would be lower than 220, which is fine. We're not close to the cap yet. The bottom table, and that bottom section is the darkest brown, I think, is the current state tax rate limit is $2.50, which is what was approved last time. We went out and collected $2.50 per, and that's what we actually forecasted as well. But assessed valuation grew at a rate that it didn't stay at 250. So on this one, if, again, we're forecasting 5% growth at $2.50, and so then it goes from 8.2 to 9.6 to 10 to 10.6. And so those are the three options. I don't know why the total's not there. I apologize. That is annoying to me now. 29 million, 29 and a half, 31.
It maxed out,
31,
yeah.
thanks. And so we're maxing out our levy collection by the rate. And so those are really the three common options that school boards have to kind of wrestle with to see what makes the most sense for their community.
Is there any sense, I know levies were not maybe amazingly popular last year around the state. Was there any sense of which of these options was most successful in the community? I know there's not apples to apples. Bainbridge Island is going to be different than.
Yeah, it is really unique to each community. We did see a significant uptick in levy passing in the last election.
Okay, good.
Yeah. and
This month.
This
Oh,
month,
yeah, but
they were-
February one, I think, right?
That one was rough, but
Yeah.
this last month was a significant uptick.
I mean,
And-
Mossy Rock passed theirs.
Yeah, and so
But what did they pass it at?
That's what I'm wondering. If there's,
mm,
what are we?
We don't,
I can look it
we
up.
can go back and get all those
Yeah.
kind of numbers.
I'm just curious
People
what's-
have cut theirs down. I mean, people do like.
Yeah, if you fail it the first time.
You feel the first time, people go pretty low, like and so for, but we can get an average. I mean, it just depends.
Okay.
on-
Yeah, I was just
We
curious.
can
if
also,
there's
we
a-
have our comparables, we have comparable districts that we run our numbers against.
I just wonder if that'd be helpful to see, hey,
Yeah.
what has passed around us?
Like districts, right?
Yeah, like,
Districts that are
right,
similar kind of free and reduced lunch, similar size.
not Griffin.
That's kind of like, just kind of gets you in the ballpark of like the kind of community, right? Everybody's kind of got east side, west side, like there are some differences around the I-5 corridor, same deal. But we can get you some more numbers, and we can put that out.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Dave Davidson would help us crunch some
For
of those
sure.
numbers.
And I guess the one question that I would have, just kind of based on the what I hear around the county, and in my own levies, being able to demonstrate that we're running for what we need versus what we can get. So,
Yeah.
now we can go to 250, I think 220 is probably too low based on, everything. But if we can show them we can survive on 235, 240, and that's a responsible number, I think we have an easier time. But if we go to 250, there's no way to market that other than you went for the max. That's my concern.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. These are the three common scenarios. Of course, you could go for 225, 237. You can go for whatever amount you want. We can calculate what that's going to generate.
We are super mindful that a lot of our families are surviving day to day, week to week, month to month. And so, we
Mhm.
on our own, advice, not setting a amount today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just around the comfort of just really back to trying to just say, where are we at now? And what can we capture with realistic inflation? Because that, I believe, our household, having conversations with community members too, they are mindful and understanding that inflation is a real thing and can impact services. And those are some of the voices that do come to the board meetings as well.
Yeah.
I want that service. I think that's basic ed. Me too. So does the district. But that's what it real and costs, and that's where it gets tricky, is because the state is defunding public education. So this is this whole thing of like, how do we get back to this levy conversation when the communities used to be charged at 7%? I'm just trying to bring this full circle.
Yeah.
I'd say this is, that's one part of the conversation. The other ones I'm going to keep going back to. I can't think of another district in Washington State that you're getting more bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Correct.
we're outperforming everyone, not just in literacy. We cut our suspensions, our attendance is up, our ninth grade on track is up. Your dollars are going farther here than anywhere else. Just look at the numbers. You go to the state and look at those numbers, not just coming from the superintendent's mouth.
And to go back to what I said is, if the state is defunding us at a rate that we actually would need to be at 260, 270 to really be happy and healthy, then we need to be able to articulate that we're running the 250, we actually need more, but this is all we can get. So I think that and I know we don't have to decide this tonight, we don't even want to decide this tonight, but I would
No, it's
love
true.
to have the numbers of what we need to live through what's going on, so we can ask for an appropriate amount or market
Okay.
what we gotta market.
Yeah, and I think I've been thinking a lot about this, really trying to make the numbers as easy to understand. One only has to go through this packet and realize there's a lot of numbers and a lot of complexity.
Sorry.
No, I mean, that's what, we have to get into, but trying to, again, back to the public, those people that can empower themselves to understanding how schools and districts are funded. I think there is a way that what we could do is kind of like, this is what basic ed costs here. If you like that, this is what it is, and this is what it looks like built into a levy. Because there are those things with special ed getting pulled out of it. We are still talking about mental health therapists, we're still talking about counselors, we are going to be talking about librarians, and we are talking about safety and security, and we are talking about athletics and maintenance on operations. So like, and technology being part of that. I mean, yes. So I mean, those are what do you want? And I think some people are like, why can't I get this and that? And I'm like, always like, that means this other, because that's just the same, that pool of items, when you say I want more of this, then I gotta look somewhere else where I redivide the pie. Because that's the amount.
Less is
So-
going somewhere else, right?
But like you're saying, if they wanna, yeah, I think that's it. I want more of, you wanna make it a little bit bigger at a different rate, because I think that is critical and the community feels that way. To your point,
Yeah.
I wanna fund that or I don't wanna fund that. That is helpful for us.
And I guess if we, as we have been, staying laser focused on our strategic plan, what is it going to take to maintain our strategic plan and then move on to the next strategic plan, which is coming up in a couple of years?
Right. But I'm still needing to disband a lot of the rumors, and the things that are not true is that district office is getting bigger. I don't have a secretary, and I got rid of a teaching and learning expert. We've cut tremendously from our district office. That I have to say that at the same time I say this.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Do you know what I'm saying?
All
Like,
that stuff's real,
Half
but
my problem is,
Yeah.
but
old
perception out
information.
there matters. I mean, reality matters, but also perception matters.
Yeah.
And how do you get that? There's such a short attention span to digest these things. We've done
Right.
amazing work to put this budget up there on the website and how it's laid out. But you come back and like, oh, well, aren't you spending, districts grown by this percent? And like, you could go read this. So as it comes to levy, I'm just curious how,
person by person, we're going around. Every single administrator is working their tail off. We're at every event, almost every night for this whole month. Like maybe not Sunday nights, but anyway, we're out there shaking hands and doing it person by person, because that's what it does. We're finding that it does take, and especially in this era of, like I know we've talked about this many times, false information. So person to person, when I'm out there, people, people are really respectful face to face. We're getting a lot of people curious. And most people are like, oh my God, I have such a great experience with the Shelton School District. 98% of them, and then 2% have some tougher questions. Totally respectful. We enjoy those questions, because I'd rather have someone say, hey, I heard you guys are having problems paying your bills. Or I heard, yeah, we did. We own it. I don't have a problem with that. And did you also hear how great our educators are doing with their kids? It provides, with your taxpayer dollars. So those are you have to have this conversation, probably to your point, is I gotta have this piece of information go with this information, because I don't wanna tell them half the story, because if I only tell them half the story, chances are someone else is gonna get in their ear with probably not accurate information.
Yeah, I think something that came up earlier today was this idea that if you were hearing something about the school district that doesn't feel right, like, it doesn't make any sense, why would they do that? Then it's probably not actually happening that way. Because if it doesn't make any sense to you, it's probably not making sense to us either. And so what you're probably missing is some context for what that nugget of truth might be, and to reach out. Like, I'm happy to walk anyone through any of this or answer any difficult question, especially if you're hearing something that just, again, if it sounds weird, it's probably not right, because we don't work in weird. That's not the plan.
Dude, call us or email us. I'd rather have a call or
Happy to
email
answer.
So you've done a lot of levies. And,
to us.
Yeah, and I mean, I've gotten to know what works and what.
and sometimes you're pushing against and I appreciate you guys doing that legwork, because I think that's probably, I mean,
Sure.
when you go through the good stuff that is happening in our district, it does surprise people, because that is not usually what they hear. Do we know, back to the last levy, do we know what our numbers were on passing that? I know I voted in it a long time ago.
Razor
but-
thin.
51.8, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering.
It was very thin. It
Okay,
was.
50
thank you.
I think the
Wondering
average-
that.
That's what was trending though across the state. for
It has
passage
been
rates.
that
People
way
were-
the whole time I've been on the board.
The
It's
average for
always been
Shelton in
right.
the last, like,
It's been slim.
10 levies is like 65. Like, it's really way higher than that
Okay.
in our community. So there's a long history of Shelton supporting the schools. Yeah.
But things are getting thin here and other places, and
Yeah.
have been for a while now.
Yeah.
Especially with McClary.
Which
And
means
I think
that-
some of that things where they're, oh, they're taking money, you know what I mean, like,
Yeah. Which is why that legwork and that you guys are doing probably matters. When you're talking 51%, every single one of those
Yeah.
is crucial.
we have the same thing.
Well, there's some things that I ran into on this last one, you know, like when you look at inflation and CPI and stuff like that, it says right in there, you know, Seattle, Bellevue, and Olympia, or Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma, and everybody's like, well, I don't want to pay the same taxes as Shelton or Seattle. Well, first of all, dollar, they're actually lower, but there's this perception that you're going to pay the tax, and it has nothing to, you know, they're not realizing that it's actually just the inflation rate that is based on an average through those markets. And so I think there's some economics/civics that we need to do a better job of talking about, because there's a lot of people that just don't understand local government, especially in junior taxing districts.
Yeah.
Is,
When those-
is there any, just watching time, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so is there any other further questions around the budget? Any other information, because we are gonna have to come to the next board meeting next week. By state law, we do have to pass a budget. And so, is there any questions, issues? We'll come back to the levy, I promise you got questions. Clinton's probably more your guy than me, I'm happy to take him, but he's got more space than I do on this.
The quick, easy, down and dirty question that I ask every year is, can we afford to do everything that we need to do and still pay down our back payments and all of that with this budget and projected revenues as stated?
Yes, this district has prioritized the work that's happening in the classroom, made reductions. Some of the class sizes are a little bit larger with those reductions, but the short answer is yes. I have a long answer, but the short answer to your question is yes.
Okay.
If somebody were to look at this budget, what would be something that you might forecast they would object to? Is there anything in there?
If someone wants to look at this budget, I'm happy to do it with them, because the actual budget document is complicated and like 180 pages. So
Right.
there's a lot to it, and I'm,
But that person that, you know,
Yeah,
is looking for something,
oh, sorry, good call.
what might they be? If that makes sense, I just want to be ready for that.
Yeah, sure.
If there's nothing, that's great, but.
I don't know.
Can I offer a suggestion?
Go ahead.
I know you have buddies that you all, you know, hang
Yeah.
out and do nerdy budget stuff.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Can you get this document for other school districts? So when people say, why are you paying this for?
I can get comparable percentages.
Yeah.
Yeah. we
I
can do
mean,
that.
if we could get something that is like,
I will say, this came up a little bit earlier, and I know we're out of time,
Yeah.
about the levy and this idea of what other folks are doing. I do think it's important to have some guardrails and some where you're at.
yeah,
But also, some of those decisions are happening, what's best for our kids and our community? And so you get to prioritize and make those decisions
yeah.
differently than the people down the street do.
So-
And our outcomes are so much better than those that's the choice we get to make, to invest in that PD or invest in those things. So it could look different, and maybe it should look different.
So,
Sure.
and
I don't want to get too complicated around
We'll
it.
have a levy work session, right? Maybe?
Yeah, this is early,
Yeah,
this is
this-
first. this is-
But
But
I
I'm
want
just wondering.
I want to answer your question, because you asked a question, is if somebody could look at this budget and have a possible issue, it is coming back to advocacy for a specific service. That's who I hear from the most.
Sure.
Who say, I've gotten librarians a handful of times, and then I get things after that, then it's like, well, what are we gonna do with this item or this, that, it becomes pretty small, to be honest with you. But that is really where it's at, because we are literally like, it is classrooms, it is what people know as your front office personnel. We are already lean in nursing services. A lot of kids have a lot of medical needs, and so outside of that, we're not doing anything.
It looks
like
really lean to me,
extraordinary.
but I'm
it's
just-
a lean, right? It's a
But
lean
I find that
budget.
helpful to say,
Yeah.
what might we complain about, and just be ready with that. And so-
Yeah, we're ready for it. It's gonna come from an advocacy standpoint
Okay.
on a specific type of service. That's what it's gonna come down to.
That's really.
And then that's where I'm
Yeah.
wondering, we have had teachers who have said they understand we're in circumstances like this, so like in a sense with a librarian, are there ways that we have people in place that are willing to do other things or bring some of those in the meantime, while we don't have some positions available, that our children in our community are not just gonna completely miss out on going to the library in their school. Doesn't mean that it's closed, maybe we don't have a full-time librarian in there, but you will still get to experience
There's a plan.
until we
Yeah.
can fill that position again. And then my question that I have is, you are saying that it is a conservative enrollment that we've budgeted for. So does it take into account any of these housing developments that are, okay, so we don't have any idea what the impact is.
Super hard to
And
predict
enrollments,
what
we
it's like.
don't know the first count of that until what, October or something?
Well, you get your first, what we'll do is we'll meet every day when school starts and talk with get the data from the secretaries about what it's looking like. And the official count is, I think, 5 days after the first day of school.
Oh, okay, I'm thinking like that's just.
But then October October 1 is a big date for lots of things that are regulatory from the state.
Okay,
So I can see why that'd be in your head. It's a big day, October
yeah,
1.
Question.
October being important.
It is.
It is.
But yeah, I think one of the most impactful things that I have heard from someone who works for the Shelton School District and the high school is they came from a community that did not pass their levy. And that, I think, telling some of those stories too, the realities of not passing the levy do hit home for people.
Yeah, it ripples out directly to homes and families, and it's a catastrophic.
Yeah, we just don't have as many
Yeah.
things to give our children as things to do with their time or experiences to have. And
Yeah.
I think that having a lean budget, that's still going to impact kids, but I do think that there are ways that we can try to combat that with what we have too.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all of your updates throughout the year. to
Yeah.
make This digestible.
I was gonna say, maybe felt well prepared for it.
Good, great.
Thanks for
That
making it
is the goal.
semi-digestible.
That is the goal.
This is the most readable budget document I have seen.
Great.
So then the next step, at our board meeting next Tuesday, we will vote
We
on
have
that.
to.
Yep.
Yes.
And that will be, we'll actually If I remember the rule right, we have to adjourn, go to a budget meeting, and do that.
Budget
We have to
hearing.
do a special budget.
You can do it right in the middle
You
of
do
your
it here.
You
meeting.
can do it, okay.
Yeah,
I never remember that.
but it is a separate event
It's
Yes.
within. a
public
meeting.
hearing, yeah.
Yes.
Just like we did with the sale of the house.
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
Yeah,
You got
and
it. You open
we have
it.
to have a totally separate public comment period.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep,
Yep.
correct.
And actually, it is a public comment.
Not
I somehow failed to answer an actual question, but I think it was good, but it's not supposed to be a question and answer time, it's just public comment.
Did we set a